Imagine you're sitting in a room with 6 other people. A researcher shows you 2 cards. On the first card, 1 line. On the second card, 3 lines, labeled A, B, and C. The question is simple. Which line on the second card matches the first one? The answer is obvious. A child could see it. One by one, the other 6 people in the room give their answer. And one by one, they all choose the wrong line. Now it's your turn. Your eyes tell you the truth. Your brain knows the answer, but 6 human voices just told you something different. What do? This is not a hypothetical. This happened to hundreds of people in one of the most disturbing experiments in the history of psychology. And the results didn't just change science. They changed how we understand what it means to be human. His name was Solomon Asch. Born in Warsaw in 1907, immigrated to America as a child. By the 1950s, a professor at Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania. He was obsessed with one question that nobody had properly tested. How much does the presence of other people change what we perceive to be true? Not what we say is true, not what we pretend is true, what we actually perceive. Can social pressure literally alter human perception, or do people simply go along while privately knowing better? These sound like the same question. They are not. One means social pressure changes your behavior. The other means social pressure changes your reality. Asch designed an experiment so simple it seemed almost insulting. And what he found was almost unbearable. The setup was elegant in its simplicity. A real participant was placed in a room with 6 other people, who were all, secretly, actors working for Asch. They were shown a series of cards. Each card had 1 reference line and 3 comparison lines. The task? Identify which comparison line matched the reference line. The correct answer was always obvious. The lines were never close in length. We're not talking about ambiguous millimeter differences. The wrong answers were wrong by centimeters, visually undeniable. In the control condition, alone, no group pressure, participants made errors less than 1% of the time. Normal human vision is nearly perfect for this task. But in the experimental condition, the 6 actors would unanimously give the wrong answer. Confidently. Casually. As if it were obvious. Asch ran 18 rounds of line comparisons. In 12 of those rounds, the actors gave the wrong answer, unanimously. Here is what happened to the real participants. 75% of them conformed at least once. Gave the wrong answer. The answer they knew was wrong. The answer their own eyes contradicted. Across all the critical trials, participants conformed to the wrong answer 37% of the time. Think about that number. Not 37% of weak-minded people. Not 37% of weak-minded people. Not 37% of people who couldn't see clearly. 37% of all answers, given by normal, intelligent, functioning adults, were consciously wrong because 6 strangers in a room said something different. Only 25% of participants never conformed at all. 1 in 4 people held firm every single time. 3 in 4 did not. Here's what the experiment looked like from the inside. Asch interviewed every participant afterward, and what they described was a specific kind of psychological agony. Some participants said they genuinely began to doubt their own vision. Maybe I'm seeing it wrong. Maybe there's something wrong with my eyes. Others knew with complete certainty they were right, but couldn't bring themselves to say it out loud. The silence of 6 confident strangers was louder than their own knowledge. One participant described it like this. He knew the answer. He was certain. But as each actor calmly gave the wrong answer, he felt a physical sensation of pressure. Not metaphorical pressure, physical, like something pushing against his chest. And when his turn came, he heard himself say the wrong answer as if someone else was speaking. He said afterward, "I felt like I was going insane." Several participants laughed nervously. Some went pale. Some visibly trembled before answering. Not one of them was told to conform. Not one was threatened. Not one was offered a reward. 6 strangers, sitting calmly, giving a wrong answer, was enough to make grown adults question their own perception of reality. When Asch analyzed the interviews, he found something crucial. The participants who conformed were not all conforming for the same reason. He identified two fundamentally different psychological mechanisms. The first he called normative conformity. This is conformity driven by the desire to belong, to not stand out, to not be the strange one, to avoid the social pain of being visibly different from the group. These participants knew they were wrong. They gave the wrong answer anyway, because the cost of social rejection felt greater than the cost of being incorrect. The brain performs a rapid unconscious calculation. What hurts more, being wrong or being alone? For most humans, throughout most of history, being alone was a death sentence. The tribe was survival. Rejection was extinction. So the brain is wired, deeply and anciently wired, to treat social exclusion as a mortal threat. Being wrong in a group feels safer than being right, alone. The second mechanism Asch called informational conformity. This is different, more unsettling. These participants genuinely began to doubt their own perception. They didn't just say the wrong answer. They started to believe it might be correct. Because here is the hidden logic the brain runs. 6 people are telling me something different from what I see. 6 people cannot all be wrong. Therefore, I must be the one who is wrong. Therefore, I must be misperceiving reality. And so the brain begins to edit perception itself, to protect the person from the unbearable possibility that they are alone against the world. One is informational, one is normative. Both produce the same result. A person, sitting in a room, saying something they know isn't true, or worse, coming to believe it. Asch didn't stop at the basic experiment. He ran dozens of variations, systematically changing one thing at a time. What he found maps the exact architecture of conformity. Group size. With just one actor giving the wrong answer, almost no conformity. With 2 actors, some conformity. With 3 actors, conformity jumped dramatically and then plateaued. Beyond 3, adding more people didn't significantly increase conformity. 3 voices were enough to create the illusion of overwhelming consensus. 3 people can rewrite your reality. Unanimity. This was the most powerful finding of all. When just one actor broke ranks, gave the correct answer, or even a different wrong answer, conformity dropped from 37% to just 5%. One person, one voice of dissent. Reduced conformity by 85%, not because that person convinced anyone logically, but because their dissent broke the spell of unanimity. It created a crack in the wall of social reality. And through that crack, truth could breathe again. Writing answers privately. When participants wrote their answers instead of saying them aloud, conformity nearly disappeared. The pressure was never about the answer. It was always about being seen giving the answer. Social performance under observation. Status and confidence of the group. When actors were presented as experts, conformity increased significantly. When actors seemed uncertain themselves, conformity dropped. The brain doesn't just count voices, it weights them. Authority amplifies social pressure exponentially. Asch published his results in 1951. In 2026, the experiment is more relevant than it has ever been, because the room with 6 actors has been replaced by something infinitely more powerful. Your social media feed. Think about what a feed actually is. It is a carefully curated display of what people around you believe, weighted by engagement, amplified by algorithm, designed to show you the most confident, unanimous voices on any given topic. It is the Asch experiment running 24 hours a day at civilizational scale. When you see a post with 10,000 likes and 200 comments all saying the same thing, your brain doesn't experience that as information. It experiences it as a room full of people giving an answer. And the ancient wiring kicks in. 10,000 people cannot all be wrong. I must be the one who is misperceiving. Normative pressure. Agree or be cast out. Informational pressure. They must know something I don't. The mechanism Asch identified in 1951 is the core engine of every viral opinion, every moral panic, every political movement that sweeps through a population faster than any individual mind can process. We are all sitting in that room. The actors just have millions of followers now. But here's what Asch considered his most important finding. The one he returned to for the rest of his career. One person changes everything. When even a single dissenting voice appeared, the real participant became dramatically more likely to trust their own perception. Not because the dissenter was persuasive. Not because they offered arguments, simply because they existed. Their existence proved that dissent was possible. That the group was not unanimous. That reality had not been decided. Asch called this the social support effect. And he believed it was, ultimately, a message of hope. Because it means that conformity is not inevitable. It is not the permanent condition of humanity. It requires unanimity to function. And unanimity is fragile. One person who says, "I see something different," doesn't just change the room. They give everyone else in the room permission to see differently too. This is why whistleblowers matter. This is why the first person to laugh at the emperor's new clothes changes everything. This is why in every historical moment where a society went wrong, the question we should be asking is not why did so many people conform, but rather where were the people who were supposed to dissent. Here is the question Asch left in the air. Right now. Today. What are the lines you're misreading because the room you're in has already decided? What do you actually see versus what you've been told to see? So many times by so many voices that you can no longer tell the difference. The participants in Asch's experiment weren't weak. They weren't stupid. They were human. And being human means carrying 2 million years of wiring that treats the group's reality as more reliable than your own. The only way out is not intelligence, not education. It's the awareness that the room exists, that the actors are always there, that unanimity is almost never real. It just performs itself until someone blinks first. And sometimes, that someone is you. In 1971, a psychologist named Philip Zimbardo decided to go further than Asch. He didn't want to know what people say under pressure. He wanted to know what people become. He built a prison in the basement of Stanford University. He hired students to play guards and prisoners. He planned to run the experiment for 2 weeks. He had to stop it after 6 days. Because the guards, ordinary college students, randomly assigned to their role, had begun doing things that are very difficult to describe in a YouTube video. That experiment has a name, and it will change how you see every institution, every uniform, and every person who has ever said, "I was just doing my job."